Hi, this is Roy Worley. Welcome to the interview show that brings on guests from all walks of life. Yeah, it's here that they tell their stories and delve a little deeper into their lives to see what got them where they are. So grab a drink, have a seat, and relax, because this is the Leo Effect.
When was the last time a short movie shook your emotions to the core? When was the last time a short movie caused you to rethink everything you stood for? When was the last time a short movie made you proud to be an American? When was the last time you felt the emotion to stand up and cheer after a short movie? The new short movie, I've Got Your Six, written and directed by Bill Foster, one of the industry's newest and fastest climbing directors, will answer all of those questions. Rarely has there been so much packed into a short movie that when you leave, you'll feel more proud of our American military veterans. A movie that was cast only with American military veterans will have you on the edge of your seat, cheering for our veterans and what makes America great. I've Got Your Six will be hitting the film festival scene soon. Be prepared to drop what you're doing and go see this powerful movie when it comes to your area. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another episode of The Leo Effect. Today, I'm joined by a very special guest. I've been excited to speak with him since I got word he was coming on the show. This is going to be a lot of fun today. Please allow me to introduce Mr. Scott Page.
Yay!
How
Hi,
are
Ray.
you?
How are you, buddy?
I'm good. How are you?
Thanks. I'm great. Thanks for having me on your show.
Absolutely. So, for anybody that may not know who you are, can you tell the listeners what it is that you do, what you feel you might be most known for?
Oh, gee, there you go. I come out of the music business originally. My claim to fame is I'm the saxophone player that played with Pink Floyd for many years, and I've been a serial entrepreneur. On my fourth startup right now, so I'm kind of one of those combination business guys, musicians. And currently with Think Experience, which is my company, Think EXP, we're an immersive entertainment company. So we're building kind of new live immersive shows kind of in the future. Okay. So that's kind of our spiel.
What does an immersive show mean?
Well, everything's changing right now. Concerts, normally we go to shows and stuff, but now we've got all this technology that allows us to create a totally different experience. We're in a business now where, you can't really sell music anymore. Obviously you can stream some music, but it's very difficult for, artists to make money off of just music. So the new kind of frontier is really creating these new experiences. And currently we've been doing a show in a 360-degree immersive dome in downtown Los Angeles at a place called Wisdom, where we've been doing our first experience, which was a Think Floyd experience. And we've been doing Pink Floyd in this 360-degree immersive dome. And what I mean by that is you sit there and you kind of lay on even chairs and beds, and you kind of look up and you're completely surrounded in visuals as we're playing Pink Floyd. So the new immersive space is really using technology, anything from maybe you've heard of those shows that are popping up, like the Museum of Ice Cream, and there's all these different kind of shows where you go, and it's really more of an experience type of thing where they're using technology to create a new type of experience for the user, as opposed to just listening. There's visuals and things that you can do, putting AR and VR into the mix.
Nice, right on.
Yeah,
cool,
fun stuff.
Yeah, what was it that got you into music in the first place?
I come from a musical fan. My father was a musician. I grew up on a show he did called The Lawrence Welk Show, which was early television back in the day. And so I was around music all my life. I actually studied to be an architect through school. It wasn't too up until I really got into college, end of high school, going to college, where I got into music. Although I did play trumpet through school, kind of for my dad, since he was a musician. He always told me, if you're gonna work, you might as well get a little music gig on the weekend. You make a little money doing that, and you don't have to work in a gas station. Do that kind of a thing. So I just kept playing, and then once at the end of high school, when I just got into college, I got in a band playing. I was the second trumpet player in a horn band called the Merciful Soul Band, which was really Jeff Porcaro and David Page, who started Toto, original members of Toto. We were kid band at the time. Now, that wasn't Toto. It was the Merciful Soul band, but I got in that band and we started playing. It was an incredible band. I was actually the worst guy in the band, but playing second trumpet at the time. But I noticed when I was studying, I was a draftsman for a company called Audiodyne, and I would be drawing exploded views of parts. That was in the day when we didn't have computers, and I had to actually use a pencil and a pen and a ruler. And then we started playing all these gigs. And then I realized, wait a minute, there's a lot of girls at the gigs. There's no girls at my drafting gigs. So I decided to become a musician. And from that point on, I just really took it up like crazy and started studying privately, pretty much 24/7, and got lucky. And, things started to turn around once about 7-8 years later. My playing started to get pretty good and got in a band called Seals and Croft. Started touring with them, and from that point on, started touring with a variety of bands, and finally ended up with Pink Floyd.
Wow, what a long journey that was, huh?
Yeah, it was crazy. Yeah, I'm pretty, I'm very thankful. I'm probably the most thankful person you've ever met, actually. I've had a great and crazy career, and I'm actually alive to talk about it. Had more fun than any human being, I could actually say. It's been a great ride, and second of all, all that sort of led up into my music, into my business career. And so I've had a pretty interesting life of kind of doing both business and music through the years.
Cool. And you play a variety of instruments. Is there any particular one you like more than the others?
I did play a lot of woodwinds. My father was a woodwind player, and he played 14 instruments. So I sort of took took a cue from him, and I played quite a few during the day because I was obviously a trumpet player, and then I started playing flute, and then I got into the saxophone. And my two favorite instruments to play is basically the saxophone and the guitar. I love to play the guitar. It's actually truly my favorite to play, but I am really mostly known as a saxophone player, and I do love the saxophone too. So those are my two. Mostly a tenor player these days. That's what I'm mostly known for, is saxophone.
Right on. Cool.
Yeah.
And you went on some pretty big tours, didn't you?
Yeah, I've been around the world a half a dozen times. We toured with Supertramp and Toto around the world. And then obviously with Pink Floyd, we went out for several years at a time and had some great tours. And yeah, definitely was very thankful to being able to go around the world and see it. It's a great way to see the world. It wasn't, especially with those bands, we traveled pretty cush, pretty first class in those groups, and not too many hardcore bus tours there. We had a lot of fun. Yep. Yeah. So I've been lucky enough to see the world and play my instrument for sure. It's been great ride.
Yeah. Was there any one particular place that you just jumps out and says, "Oh, I remember this one time. This was my favorite experience"?
Well, I think there's a few. Pink Floyd was such a massive brand worldwide. Doing stadiums and giant shows. And I think one of the main shows we ever did, which stuck out, was we played Venice, Italy, where they floated these barges down, 2 barges the sizes of football fields, and put them out, 150 yards off of St. Mark's Square out on the water. And they built the entire Floyd show, and, hundreds of thousands of people showed up to a free Pink Floyd show. And it was probably one of the wildest things I've ever seen. Took 5 days to set up. People were living on gondolas and boats out on the water so they could hold their space for the show. And I mean, it was just incredible. Once we set up, they ran a runway out to the front of it where the stage was, to the sound mixing console. Boats, gondolas, people from all over the world showed up. They actually closed down Venice, so many people came.
Wow.
They lit the entire streets, all the buildings up and down, and we played this show. It was broadcast to about 120 countries, and the wildest part was right as we finished, they sent off $1 million worth of fireworks, and it was crazy. And the whole city was closed down, and I'd never seen so many people in my life. It was one of the most wild things we've ever done. But that show was extraordinary. You can actually find out about that if you just, search Pink Floyd Venice. You'll see a lot of videos, and if you go online, YouTube, you can actually watch that show. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
That one really sticks out. I mean, we've done some great ones, Palace of Versailles. We played that, 90,000 people outside. That was incredible. Let's see, Giant Stadium was a great one. Did some great shows even with Supertramp. Also a lot of in France and Europe. I mean, that's where we did a lot of the big shows. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
those are a few of my faves. Few of my favorites.
That's awesome. Were you ever in a position where you wish that you might be like the lead singer or something?
I was always never thought about lead singing. I was always the lead saxophone player. That was my thing. Yeah, no, I could sing a little bit. I was mostly sang, just doing backgrounds and parts. As a background singer, it was important, especially playing with bands. They always need an extra singer. But no, I was really more of, wanting to play my horn and soloist, that kind of guy.
Gotcha. And that probably brought you enough notoriety as it was anyway.
It was enough. It's been a great ride. I can't complain. So it's been a lot of fun for sure.
Cool. Cool. Hey, can you tell me a little bit about what Walt Tucker Productions was all about?
Yeah. So Walt Tucker was one of my first company. It was actually my really first company, and it was It was named after my two heroes, Walt Disney and Preston Tucker, the car manufacturer. I don't know if you remember them. I love their pioneering spirit. Obviously, most people know Walt Disney, but Preston Tucker was the car designer. He designed a car called the Tucker. There's a movie out. You can see it's a great movie. That's out on him, but he was very innovative. They actually only made like 34 of those cars, but mostly it was pioneering spirit. But the Walt Tucker was an audio video post-production facility and merchandising business. So we did a lot of post-production and worked on a lot of music videos and shows, everything from, we worked with on the Rolling Stones, Janet Jackson, Bon Jovi, let's see, Cinderella. I mean, a whole bunch of bands through the years, a lot of music video work, but that was that. And then we had a full-blown recording studio in there that I developed called Earmax, which was an experimental studio. It was a surround 360 band in the middle with the console, a big giant room, and we all played through these near-field monitor speakers. And so it was an audio video post and experimental company, and I had a merchandising business there. So the idea is we could record, and it was kind of a 360 production company. And then we had all the merchandise, and I did a lot of the merchandise for a lot of music companies, from Yamaha, Guitar Center, Fender, a lot of different companies. So that was one of my first companies, and that later became Seventh Level, which is my interactive company that I started, which we took public, which is a NASDAQ company. And so I've been in the game, educational space, technology, and the music business now for quite a few years.
That's amazing. And I wanted to talk to you about the Seventh Level thing because, a lot of people don't transition with the way the times did very easily, but it seems
Right.
like you did a really good job transitioning from the musician to Walt Tucker, and then you changed to Seventh Level, which was all about CD-ROM games, right?
Right. Yeah. I guess, I love the pioneering spirit. That's why I had Walt Tucker, kind of being on the leading edge, inventing and designing new ways. Walt Tucker was all about designing how to put sound and picture together. We developed this whole visual sound idea where we used zooming microphones, guys wore 11. So when the camera zoomed, it would actually zoom the audio up on the person. So I was experimenting with sound and picture. And then I saw, this whole thing of CD-ROM come along, and I did my first CD-ROM, which was called Music Bytes, which was really audio for computer users, right? At the time, there was no way to add audio to your presentations and things. So we did this Music Bytes thing, which was all series of little audio clips and things for this stuff. And I was actually myself and a gentleman by the name of Jeff Skunk Baxter, which a lot might remember, was the guitar player for Steely Dan, and actually started Steely Dan and the Doobie Brothers. So we were out pushing this thing at a trade show called Comdex in Las Vegas, and I looked across the room and I saw something on the screen of one of the computers, and I walked up and I saw this title, this children's title called Just Grandmom Me, and that was the first time I'd seen where you clicked on an object on a screen and it actually moved. And I said, wow, that's my future. So I jumped into that world, and I started hanging heavily into the cyberpunk scene. It was funny because we used to hang it with guys in their garages, all these programmers back in the day when it was, programming was, very, not that there weren't a lot of programs going on at that day. Those was early CD-ROM days. And so we did Seventh Level. So my biggest claim to fame that I'm one of most proud of is I directed and produced the world's first interactive cartoon. And it was called Toonland, and that was what we did to start at Seventh Level, and we were actually able to take that company public on that. And then it was an NASDAQ company, and we did Toonland, which starred Howie Mandel.
Right.
And it was this interactive cartoon, and it was kind of the beginning of all that. And from that, I moved into doing the Seventh Level. We did all the Monty Python series of games, had a bunch of number one hits, Complete Waste of Time, which was the Monty Python interactive game, which was their first game. And then we did the Life of Brian, the Holy Grail, a series of Python titles. And I really got into the technology and art side of things. And, I love business and I love art and music. So I combined those two. And so it's been a very interesting ride. I believe, technology, especially today for artists, I believe this is the greatest time in history for the independent artist, mainly because you're holding a worldwide broadcast mechanism in the palm of your hand now with these cell phones, and you can build audience and grow your audience and do it by yourself. So it's a very interesting time, but you have to get educated in the space. So I'm a big believer that, staying on top of technology is really critical.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Especially today, it moves so fast, especially if you're in the entertainment business. So I just believe it's, I kind of try to combine business and art together. I think that's the model for today from many artists.
Yeah, and you've done a great job with that. You kind of flowed through everything.
Yeah, I'm very thankful. I mean, it's kept me young, that's for sure. It's great because I get to, it's interesting because I teach a whole course called SPACE, which stands for Story, Plan, Army, Conversion, Education. And I kind of get to teach the old dog gets to teach the new dogs new tricks. So
Wow.
Which is kind of fun staying on top of it. Yep.
And that's at the Thornton School?
Yeah, I did teach that out at USC. I mostly lecture on the topic, and I'll teach some to artists, kind of directly one-on-one. But, I lecture on that whole idea because I believe artists need to think like a startup today. It's a different model. I mean, if you want to be in the game now, it's very difficult to be in the hits business. Like I said, you can't sell music. Streams are very difficult to make money on. For most artists, a million streams will basically generate roughly around $4,000 to $5,000. Unfortunately, there's only 2 to 3% of the entire Spotify catalog has a million streams. So it's very difficult to make money in the streaming world. So where can you make money now? And it's really, you have to think like a business person, startup, and it's about, creating these experiences or the relationship you can sell. So those are the two things. So I teach artists how to think like a startup, build a business, and kind of grow their business, and I use varieties of startup principles. One is the lean startup movement, which is a lot of businesses today out of Silicon Valley run through the lean startup principles. So I teach those to artists and really try to help them to think more like a startup business and build a direct-to-consumer model. So it's great. I mean, there's a real, what's nice about this business for artists today is it really doesn't take that many people to make it a viable business. My model is based around a thing that's called the 1,000 True Fans. And a true fan is somebody that will spend $100 a year. So if I have 1,000 people that'll spend $100, there's your first $100,000 in revenue. So I teach artists to go small, build a repeatable model, and then kind of grow their audience from there. So it's really thinking differently about a direct-to-consumer, building a products that people actually care about. Because what can you sell? Like I said, it's the experience, how you bundle things, how you mash things together, how you create unique things. That's what I teach artists to think a little bit outside the box and build their own business.
Yeah, and that's great. A great thing to learn. A lot of people kind of neglect that fact, and then when they get to that point, they say, "Oh man, I wish I knew what to do here."
Oh yeah, I mean that's the thing. That's I try to I try to teach them every day, you got to get up and you got to get educated. That's really important. So you need to start studying other, there's so much information online now. What's beautiful is this, you've got, like I said, not only is that worldwide broadcaster in the palm of your hand, that worldwide phone in your hand gives you access to so much data and education. You can basically find anything you need to know by using, Google search, and you can start learning. So I try to tell artists, you got to get up to speed on what's going on every day. Study. There's so many people that are out there teaching you incredible things on how to use, Instagram or Twitter for business, and how to create Facebook campaigns that can actually convert. That's why with my whole space story plan, Army conversion is very important, because if you're not converting, it's a hobby. It's either a business or a hobby. If it's a hobby, then fine, you can have fun. If it's a business, you got to generate revenue. So it's really for certain types of artists. Not all artists, can really like the aspect. A lot of them want to, sit around, smoke fatties, and write songs all day and wait for it to come. But if you're really serious about it, the opportunity to create a sustainable business now is right there in the palm of your hand. It's just a matter of, getting up every day and going to work. It's not easy having this much. Like I said, it's not easy having this much fun. That's my motto. But if you want to work, you can make it happen. Like, look at you. You've got your podcast going, right? You're building your business.
Trying.
There you go.
Entrepreneurship.
That's the game. That's what it's all about. Entrepreneurs. I'm a staunch free market capitalist. I believe that's the greatest system in the world. It's lifted more people out of poverty and brought more, innovation to the world. And I still believe that's really the model. I think we need to be more conscious about the things we do as capitalists, but conscious capitalism, I think, is the new model. And I believe that's really critical. And I love entrepreneurship, and that's important.
Absolutely. What do you think would be your greatest words of wisdom to somebody who's just starting out in this career?
As a musician or artist, I think, really is to take the art and really combine the business aspect of it. I try to teach artists that, it's not just, a lot of them don't like the aspect of business. I don't want to do the business part. I don't want to understand the business part. It doesn't matter to me. Somebody else should do that. And I try to explain to them it's really critical that they get educated on the business side of things, so they at least know how to hire and build their team and what the knowledge. So I think it's really taking and looking at business as art also. So it's combining the art of business and the art of music or art at the same time. And it can be a lot of fun, because it's great when you actually make something that you can get out there and sell and see the fruits of your labor come in the way of revenue. And it allows you to not only work on your craft, but it also allows you to have the freedom to do what you want, right? So I would say, start studying business. I would learn, one of the things I teach artists is again, we talked about the lean startup movement, and you can Google that. There's a thing called the Lean Canvas, which is a one-page business plan. And I believe that's one of the great tools. And you can get that tool. You can go to leanstack.com. That's lean, STACK.com. And it's a site, it's interactive. You can click on it. You can build your first lean canvas. And it basically takes you through the process of building a business plan. But it's, like I said, it's a one-page business plan. It asks you 9 questions. And it's really important to answer. You have to answer those questions. And the most important part of the lean process is the set of principles that it's founded on, which is, one is fail fast. And what that means is you want to basically create something that you're going to test and validate, which is your second main principle. And you want to make sure that if it's not working, you want to get out quick and readjust your model, what you're designing, what you're putting together. So it's got fail fast so that you can readjust, test and validate everything. So before you go out and pour money into it or whatever, there's ways now, and it teaches you, if you start studying the lean principle, how to test and validate your ideas. To get strong buy signals, basically understanding where your business and what you're going to be doing, and if it's valid, that way then you can put gas on it and move forward. So and then the third main one is to what is the smallest thing that you can do that'll give you the biggest bang for your buck. So the lean canvas and that model, what's good about it is it doesn't only tell you what you're going to do, it more importantly tells you what you're not going to do, because it's so easy to spend a whole lot of time on stuff that's not going to get you anywhere. And it's real easy to get distracted. So the whole lean movement is about the smallest thing, the thing that's going to give you the biggest bang, test, validate, and make sure that what you're doing is you're going to move it forward in the right way. So anything I would tell any artist out there is, get into the model. Here it is. It's story. You got to have a great story. And it's not about being hey, I write songs. I'm from Cincinnati. I'm a guitar player. Nobody cares about that. They care about what you stand for, what's your purpose, what problem are you solving. So as an artist, you want to think differently about building that story that rises above the noise. Then you've got your planning, and that's where I tell everybody the P for space is got to put a plan together, and that's where we use the lean startup principles. I suggest going out, and there's a book called Running Lean, and that will teach you how the principles work. And then, then the A is the Army. That's your influencers. Everything starts with influencers and super fans, so you want to identify those. And once you've got that in place, then you go into your C, which is your conversion. So I tell everybody to learn conversion funnels. Google those. How does a conversion funnel work? And that'll teach you a way to move your audience from your first meeting them to basically, buying something or joining your group or whatever you decide. But funnels are really important. And then the E is the third one, education. Because if you're not getting educated, staying on top of it, you're going to get left behind, because this market is moving so quickly. So that's my advice to anybody out there. Get yourself educated, start learning some business, and start building your business. It's all about, again, I have an interesting thing. There's an artist, a friend of mine, that has about 125 super fans, because that's where the money is. Mm-hmm. And that 125 fans virtually supports her business.
Wow.
On a yearly basis. Yeah, because she's created, merchandise and things. They're such super fans. They buy everything. They come to all of her shows. Because we know that the super fan is really where that generates the revenue. I mean, we have data now, which is one of the big things that artists have access to that we never did, is the data. And the data says the super fan will generate roughly around 60% of your revenue. So 2 to 3% of your entire audience will call the super fan, but they'll generate 60% of your revenue, right? So you want to understand this stuff, get educated, go to school, and you'll be off and running.
Cool.
Yeah. There you go. That was a long answer, right?
No, I like it. It's a good answer.
Good.
Are
Good.
you on any kind of social media that you'd like to tell the listeners about so they can follow you?
Yeah, everything is I am Scott Page. I am Scott Page. Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. You can find me there. Just hit me up. Tell me you saw me on the show, and I'll message you. And then if anybody has any questions, I'm always happy to answer questions and stuff.
Cool.
Yep.
And I have one last final question for you before we wrap things up here. How cool was it to be voted, or I guess named, one of the 100 coolest people in Los Angeles?
Yeah, that was actually, obviously very a big honor. Obviously, that was out of Buzz magazine. I remember that. Funny story, real quick. It was, obviously it was very, it's humbling, and it's very nice to be noted in that space. But I'll tell you a funny story. I remember I was driving down the street, and I didn't realize that thing came out. And there was I was listening to talk radio, and a guy comes out and says, "Wow, they just put out the top 100 coolest people in Los Angeles." And wow, there's this old has-been saxophone guy by the name of Scott Page. And I laughed silly because he started talking about it. But, that was what kept me relevant, was being, obviously staying on top of technology, being on the leading edge. So, but that was really, it was fantastic. And it was really fun to hear that on the radio that day. But thanks for bringing it up.
You're welcome. I figure, why not? You're still relevant today. I like it, and I'm a huge fan, so that was great.
Thank you very much. Thank you very, very much.
Yeah, and, I just want to say thank you for coming on the show today and, humbling me with your presence and actually being willing to talk to me.
Come on, buddy. Let's go. It's podcast world right now. Come on. Build your business. I love that. You're an entrepreneur.
Well, thank you.
my kind of guy. There you go.
Great. Well,
Thank you so much for having me on your show. I really appreciate it.
absolutely. Anytime. And thank you to all the listeners who tuned in and checked this out. Make sure to go to all the different social medias for Scott Page here and click the likes, the bells, the dings, whatever you got to click on. They're all different buttons, but they all get the same result. And you'll have a great time. He's a great guy. Lots of good stuff coming, and you can stay on top of it. So thank you all again, and we'll see you next time.
Take care, Ray. Thank you, buddy.
Oh, now that was an awesome interview. Thanks so much for listening. You all are so great. And don't forget to head to Facebook, Insta, and Twitter and follow The Leo Effects. If you want to hear some comedy and ridiculous voices, check out Shattered Dungeons on YouTube and all other places podcasts can be heard. And you'll hear me voicing crazy characters, usually pretty terribly. So thank you so much. You all are the absolute best. And we will see you all on the next episode.